Welcome to Difficult Conversation Africa broadcast. I present to you the host, Yinka Olaito.
To sustain a 360-degree growth, an holistic approach to balancing career approach, personal development and well-being, as well as team development and long-term impact. One thing that is sure is this: you need to have the right strategy in place, and you need to know what to do. There are vital ingredients that are essential for 360-degree growth. It's not just about hitting your targets. It's not just about thriving in every area of your life and career and health and relationship as well as impact. It's about knowing what to do. Interestingly, today on Difficult Conversation Africa podcast, my guest is a professional and who had worked with several clients in helping people and organizations to achieve a sustainable growth. The topic for today that we will be discussing is how to build right strategy for sustainable growth. Sharon Jessop knows what it means to perform at the top and stay there. Together, we will explore the mindsets, habits, and strategies that keep leaders sharp, resilient, future ready. If you are ready to move beyond short bursts of success and build a legacy of lasting excellence, this conversation is really important for you. And with the above, let me welcome you to Difficult Conversation African podcast, and I welcome my guest, Sharon Jessop.
Hello, and thank you so much for having me.
Thank you very much, and thank you for all that you do. I'm so impressed with your profile and what you have done in the past. And I'm really inspired by what you are doing, the changes you are bringing to individuals, leaders, and organizations in your own space. That's a good work, and kudos to you. Let's go to the first question of the day. What does 360-degree growth mean to you, and why do you think it is important for leaders today?
Okay, well, when I think 360-degree growth, I'm really thinking about a process where you get feedback from everyone around you, not just your manager, but also your peers, your team members, and also through your own reflection. So this is a well-rounded approach that helps you to see both your strengths and the areas where you are needing some work. And it gives you a much more clear picture of how you're doing. So this totally trumps the old way of doing things. It's a more honest approach to evaluating a leader or really anybody for that matter. And it's about raising your self-awareness, identifying opportunities to improve, and also making sure that you are growing in a balanced way, both professionally and personally.
I like the dimension you introduced. Making sure that you grow in a balanced way. So, looking back at your career, can you share a defining moment or turning point that shaped your own leadership, so that that is really inspiring for our listener to learn from?
Oh, absolutely. I can remember a very specific moment many years ago that completely reshaped my own personal leadership journey. I was in a managerial role at Ford Motor Company at the time and leading a team of 5 direct reports and more than 50 indirect reports. And one day, my manager, bless his soul, Anton van der Walt, called me into his office. I showed up with my notebook and my pen, ready to tackle whatever task he had in mind. But instead, he asked me to put them down. He wanted to have a personal one-on-one conversation with me. I thought, I must have done something wrong. But he told me, when you are in a good place, you have the power to motivate people to do anything. They'll cross oceans, they'll climb mountains, and they'll walk through fire for you. But when you're in a bad place, people fear you and they run away from you. It was a massive wake-up call, I promise you. Oh my gosh. I never wanted to be someone people were afraid of. I wanted their respect, not their fear. That conversation, now nearly 20 years ago, was the start of my self-development journey. And honestly, it's still work in progress today. I believe that as a leader, you can never rest on your laurels. If you expect the people around you to grow and improve, you have to keep working on yourself too.
I love that because, and that will drive us to the third question that I have in mind. I like the fact that leaders must be work in progress, and it's really important that every leader take this in at every moment. They mustn't stop learning. They mustn't stop growing. But the question is, many leaders rise quickly but fade just as fast. What is the difference between a short-term success and sustained peak performance?
Okay, so honestly, the difference is that short term success usually lacks real strategic depth and planning. It's about those quick wins, but it doesn't lay down solid foundations that last. And that's what we want. So for me, sustained peak performance, on the other hand, is about thinking long term. It's playing the long game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. And most people don't always get that. So sustained peak performance is really about setting those clear long-term goals and implementing the strategies that guides decisions and provide purpose. It's about being consistent, putting in the work, and about focusing on building strong core competencies within yourself and your team, having those consistent routines and processes, and the resources to create strong, sustainable, and stable teams and organizations instead of just chasing what's hot and happening right now. So leaders who achieve lasting success are always developing adaptable skills. They're sticking to those good habits. They maintain a healthy and resilient mindset. So this is what helps them build those stable organizations and keep performing at a high level year after year, decade after decade, not only for themselves, but for their teams as well.
I love that dimension. Now, let's look at sustainability because 360 degree talk about a long-term view and sustainability. And the next three questions will look at sustainability, growth, habits, balancing team and culture. So the first question in that area, I know you are expert and you have worked around this for long. How do you personally balance organizational growth with your own personal growth and well-being?
Okay, that's a lovely question, and I love answering that. For me, balancing organizational goals with my own growth and well-being is all about setting boundaries, but also being in alignment. So if a client or a company's mission doesn't fit with my own personal vision and values, it just doesn't make sense for me to be there, right? So I always try and approach things holistically, seeing my professional and my personal goals as connected rather than fighting for my time and energy. It also means that I need to practice really good time management and having to be upfront with managers and or clients about the workload and my own personal work-life balance and making sure that I protect my time for myself too. So hobbies and downtime, those are non-negotiable, and I actually block off time in my diary for that. I've learned that you can't give from a cup that is half full or that is half empty. You just simply, if you're running on empty, you're no good to anybody. And these days, it's almost like overworking has become its own pandemic. And honestly, nothing good ever comes from that. It's almost trendy these days to be super stressed and super overworked, like it's some type of achievement. But let me tell you, taking care of yourself, it's not just a nice to have, it's a must. You cannot give 100% when you are not running on 100% energy, health, and vitality. And this doesn't just go for the workplace, it goes for your personal life, your family life, and your interpersonal relationships as well. You have to maintain your own energy so that you can show up and be the best for everybody around you.
Right. I think you made a point that really struck chord with me. You are saying that if, as a leader, your personal values do not align with the organizational value, it is good not to lead such company. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. You spend so much time and energy and effort into your workplace or with your clients, that if those values, the vision and the mission is not aligned, there's really no point for you to be there, because you're not going to give 100% and you want to contribute 100%. You want to give everything. So you have to make sure that the company that you are working for as an employee or a leader, or the clients that you serve as a leader or as a consultant, that those values are 100% aligned. Very important.
Right. So, in keeping yourself healthy and well balanced as a leader, what daily habits, routines, practices should a leader keep in focus to help prevent burnout?
Okay, so I have very specific practices that I follow 5 to 7 days per week. First and foremost, I always ensure that I get enough sleep. I start my day with exercise, breathing exercises, and also a short meditation, normally between 7 and 10 minutes. And then I also have my very specific affirmations and mantras that I use to keep myself on track, because it's all about that self-awareness, right? I also make use of a technique called time blocking, which I love doing. For example, I have very specific schedules that I use for different things during my day, such as reading and replying to emails, writing reports, etc. And I always keep my phone on silent, 24/7. I know that I will want to check my phone every time I hear a notification. So having it on silent works. Very true. We're all very easily distracted, so I just
That
keep it
must
on
be a great
silent.
discipline. That's really that's a whole lot of discipline.
It takes a lot of discipline and a lot of practice. And when you first start doing it, you are freaked out. And it has happened that I've actually missed an important call or two. But you know what? You can always fall back. And here's the thing. My phone and technology is here to serve me, not the other way around. So I think that for me was also a really big realization. And then I'm also a firm believer in you are what you eat. So I personally eat healthy 80% of the time. I love the 80-20 rule, whereby you eat 80% of the time to fuel your body for energy, vitality, health, and the other 20% of the time you can eat for pleasure. So this ensures that I always have the energy to keep me focused, to avoid burnout. It's always so much easier to maintain a healthy mind and body as opposed to having to do the damage control when you're already burnt out. So those are my strategies that I personally follow.
I think that's a good rule to follow. As a consultant, sometimes keeping my phone at silence is a big deal, because I always think, oh, maybe a client want to reach me, maybe money is coming, maybe, and in a way, technology begin to control us instead of us being in charge of our life. And interestingly, most of the calls that you now get, it may not be money related. It may be something that causes you more emotional damage or news or whatever. So I think that leaders must be able to see technology as something that they must master. It shouldn't master them. And I think that also that drives us to the next question about leaders' emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence is often cited as key to leadership. How has that influenced the way you sustain your performance? Because emotional intelligence is very vital. Now we have artificial intelligence. Now we have spiritual intelligence, or whatever people call it. But let's start with emotional intelligence.
Fantastic. Absolutely. So emotional intelligence for me is at the heart of effective leadership. I still remember that pivotal conversation with my manager nearly 20 years ago that completely shifted my perspective. And it set me on a path of continuous self-improvement. And as I mentioned, not just for myself, but for those around me. So a leader with strong emotional intelligence knows how to communicate effectively and openly, because there's different ways of communication and not all of them are good. But when you are emotionally intelligent, it actually really helps you to get through to people and really listen to people and genuinely empathize with others. So this creates a very supportive environment where people can thrive together. And that's what we want in the workplace. So it's not just about managing tasks or hitting targets. It's about understanding what really drives people, building that trust, and handling challenges with empathy and clarity. So, emotional intelligence means I am more self aware and more intentional in how I show up for myself and for others. It helps me regulate my own reactions and emotions. It helps me to stay organized and disciplined, and also to foster meaningful relationships, which you really need in the workplace. It's also the key to thinking creatively and encouraging innovation within your team. So, when you lead with emotional intelligence, you naturally cultivate a culture where everyone feels seen and heard, and they're all motivated to grow together.
Yeah, I like one thing that you mentioned, a point like that, self-awareness of a leader. I think that is very important. If you as a leader you are not self-aware, it can create trouble for yourself and for the team. And I think that this is vital for every leader to understand. Self-awareness, the first step to your growth. So as a leader, Sharon, how do you manage or ensure continuous growth among the team?
Okay, so for me, again, it starts with leading by example and making learning something that everyone can feel comfortable with. You don't want your team members to feel uncomfortable in a situation where they might not know how to handle something or what to do. And always remember that your team will do what you do, not what you tell them to do. So if you, as a leader, constantly work on yourself and your skills, and your team witness that, it will inspire them to follow suit. It makes it easier for them to also do that. And then, very, very important for me on a personal level is that I want my team to know that making mistakes is not the end of the world. Failure is not fatal. In fact, it's essential for growth and just another opportunity to learn something new. I also try and give feedback that is thought-provoking. So I don't always give the answers. I ask, what do you think? How will you handle this? And I encourage them to speak up, to speak out, okay? And my feedback is generally quite useful. So I look for ways to support people in their individual growth, whether it's through training, setting a new challenge, or just a check-in about what their goals and aspirations are. And then, super important, to celebrate when people step out of their comfort zone or pick up a new skill. I always encourage everybody to share what they're learning with the group, and give your people the freedom to learn new things. Invite in lots of different perspectives. As a leader, sometimes it's about not or stepping back and allowing people to voice their opinions and genuinely listening to what they've got to say. And then always to connect those development opportunities to their career growth, because that helps keep them motivated and it moves the organization forward as a whole.
Yeah, thank you. One takeaway from that answer for me is that leaders need to understand that they don't know it all, and that it's better to ask for feedback from their colleagues at work. I like the point that you stressed that oftentimes you ask, "What do you think?" And somehow, in what the other person thinks, you will get your lesson and you'll be able to come up with a better approach or solution to some issues instead of thinking that you always have the answer to every problem or every challenge is facing you. And I think that will now lead us to the other segment of this. And I'm quite happy and inspired by your answers so far. And under this one, we'll be looking at measuring multiplying impact and establishing a legacy for the future as a leader, which is really important to for me as a leader. So beyond profit and performance metric, what indicators do you use to measure true success as a leader?
Lovely question. I love this. So for me, the real success isn't just about the profits and the performance metrics. It's about the people, the team, and the things like how engaged and happy your team is, whether people actually stick around, and are they growing? And is there a culture where everyone feels safe and supported and happy to voice their opinions? So I pay close attention to how well we communicate and collaborate as a team, the loyalty and the trust that we build with one another and our clients, and whether we're nurturing the next generation of leaders. Because remember, if you can't be replaced, you can't be promoted. Very, very important. And I'm going to state that again. If you as a leader cannot be replaced, you cannot be promoted. So personally, I believe it's profound, right? Very profound.
Yeah, very.
Absolutely. So a true leader should always be able to step aside without anything falling apart. These are the things that show me that we're building something strong and lasting and not just chasing those short-term wins.
Oh, God. I like that profound statement. If you cannot be replaced, you cannot be promoted. I've seen, particularly in some culture, where a person wants to stay there permanently because he's afraid of what the future holds. And I think that for our viewers, this will be a major takeaway point. Ability to be replaced, working out your succession, even while you are still alive, and you don't have to stay there. So, what are some of the biggest challenges leaders face in trying to sustain 360-degree growth that you have seen?
So honestly, I think one of the biggest challenges leaders face when they're trying to sustain the 360-degree growth is juggling all the different demands that comes with being a leader. And especially time pressures, and the constant focus on profits, profits, profits. There's also a natural resistance to change that's in people. So not just in the leaders, but also in the employees. So it can be really tough to keep everyone engaged and communicating openly. But if you consistently do the right things, then the right things will happen. And sometimes also I find that feedback gets lost, or maybe it's not shared often enough. And it's not always easy to create a culture where learning and development are front and center. As I mentioned, very often with a lot of companies, it's all about the profit, profit, profit. So to tackle these challenges, I think it's all about staying actively involved as a leader and making sure that your vision is clear, that it's consistent, and that it is shared with the whole team time and time again. And then prioritizing open communication. And when I say that, I mean it's not just one-way communication. So you communicate, but you invite feedback. You invite your employees, your teams to communicate with you and encourage them to give feedback, because that goes a long way, as does investing in people's growth and well-being. You have to invest in your employees. You want them to stick around. You want to spend that time and effort on them. So when you receive feedback, be sure to give it due consideration, as your team needs to be actively involved in the organization's vision. It can't just be one-way traffic. So if you only pay lip service, you will lose credibility as a leader, believe me. So if you consistently take these steps, you are much more likely to build that culture of ongoing improvement and support that, again, keeps everyone aligned and keeps the organization and everyone moving forward together.
Thank you, Sharon, for your time, and I'm so happy for the insight, and I believe for our viewers, I've been talking with Sharon Jessop, popularly known as the Rhino Lady. She's a keynote speaker, peak performance, paradigm and mind mastery coach, TEDx speakers. Is also an adventurer, ultra runner, and serial entrepreneur. And she's based in South Africa. If you have not taken out of this conversation, please remember, as a leader, you are not replaceable. That means you cannot be promoted. Also learn that your self-awareness, emotional intelligence, empathy, deep empathy are very essential to your growth and to the organization growth. Having a 360-degree sustainable growth will not be a child play. It takes a leader who understands the environment, who understands he or herself, and who is willing to make the change that the environment and the world need. On that note, I want to say thank you, our listener, for this, for listening to us, and thank you, Sharon Jessop, for being here. I hope that we will have you one other time. The insight is quite inspiring and is something thought-provoking. Thank you, and have a great day. See you in the next edition.
Thank you for listening to this episode. For inquiry, please send an email to info@difficultconversationafrica.org. Telephone 0809 591. Please follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Difficult Conversation Africa. See you soon.